right, good morning. Please go ahead and be seated. How are you doing? Milestone, online, the satellite churches, and of course those in here, it is great to be with you. I don't know the impression you had when you walked in. Because I kind of felt like, wait a second, what's going on? There's transformation happening here. Kind of felt like somebody was bringing vacation to me. Yes, we are. We are in a new series, and I'm excited about it already. I mean, gosh, there's something about the sunshine. It just brings energy. And then, of course, you throw in those palm trees or coconut trees, and you're like, oh, life is good. Summer is here. For some of you, it's vacation. For some of the students, depending on your age, what you're saying to yourself is, I got Wonderland all summer long. And some of you, I'm just working. I just need to work. School is over. I just need to work. If you're a teacher, oh my goodness, can I get one of those jobs? It's like 3 months of vacation. But you know, we can bring that summer feeling into our relationship with God, where we take the summer off, right? Have you been there? Have you done that? You're like, oh, summer is here. I'm just about to chill. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm all about rest. But this summer, wherever you find yourself, whether you're working, you're traveling, whether you're a teacher, it doesn't matter. Whether you have no vacation at all, we want to be together. But most importantly, we want to spend time with Jesus. So we're calling our new series Summer in the Sun. Okay, not S-U-N, but S-O-N, Summer in the Sun. And I believe if we stick together, if we maybe pivot, change our mindset just a little bit, this can be one of the most meaningful summers in your life. Why? Because we want to draw closer to Jesus. We want to glean from some of his life lessons, impactful lessons, because I believe when we stick to the scriptures, when we apply as followers of Jesus, when we apply ourselves to the principles, guess what? There's transformation. Not only that, the people around us will feel the impact. People will get a chance to interact with the scriptures and with what God had in mind when he sent Jesus to come and die on the cross for you and I. Summer in the Sun. Let me begin with a little story. COVID happened 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, and I was one of those people who had multiple cars. We have 2 cars. We're a family of 5. And so I said to myself, you know what? I can save a lot of money right here if I park one of those cars. Let's save some money. I'll cut the insurance. I'll do this and I'll do all of that. And I will save myself some money. And so after all the restrictions were, just removed, I went back to the car and I just wanted to get it on the road. Well, you can imagine what happened, right? It wouldn't start. I mean, I tried, to move it here and there while it was packed. Of course, I didn't have the insurance, so I was limited in what I can do. So I just moved it in and out, and eventually I just gave up. And then the car died. So I took the car and I went to my mechanic. I had it towed, which cost money. I towed it to my mechanic and I said, help me out. And he said, oh, what have you done? Because the best thing you can do for a car is to drive it. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't believe you. Yeah, because if I drive it, then it's going to be devalued, and I want to, this Toyota here is taking me to the graves, right? And so I want to hold on to it. I want to preserve it. So I didn't believe what he said. So I said to myself, let me find a master mechanic. He knows everything, Dr. Google. Don't you hate it when you tell your kids something and they're like, okay, let me see what Google says? Come on, man, I'm your dad here. I've been entrusted with your care and your life and your development, and you got another parent, Google? Anyway, so I go on Google, and I'm like, let me go find out what my mechanic is telling me is true, or he just wants me to keep coming to him, right? So I found an article. I went to the best of the best, J.D. Power. There was an article on their website, and it said this: vehicles have one purpose only, to be driven. Undriven cars have many issues. The batteries lose their charge. The tires lose the air pressure. The fluids, they lose their power. They degenerate. I'm like, what's happening here? And not only that, pets actually move in. So I was beginning to say to myself, well, again, what have I done? And the attempt to save money, guess what? Ended up what? Costing me more. Ended up costing me more. Can you relate? Have you tried to just hold on to preserve and then eventually it just didn't work out? This is true in so many areas of life. You know, my poor wife would go to, get all the fruits and wash them and decorate them nicely and put it right on the countertop. And, her hope is that we will go by and, just see it and just be drawn to it and take one and eat. But guess what? I walk by and I'm like, And I'm not the only person in the house who does that. I won't give the kids away. But over time, you see the fruits, get all saggy and wrinkled, and you use it or you lose it. The same is true with money. Over time, $10,000 becomes $7,000, becomes $8,000. Why? Because of inflation and rising interest rates. So if you let it sit in cash because you are afraid, because you don't want to, guess what? It depreciates. There's a principle here, and that is you use it or you lose it. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because God is not in the business of saving us and just saying, now that you are saved, just go remain preserved. And then one day, I'll see you in heaven. It just doesn't work like that. God, that's not who God is. So much so that he talks about a seed. And in John 12:24, it says this: I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Self-preservation. Preserve, preserve, preserve. And Jesus is saying no. He saw himself as that seed. That as far as he was here, as far as he was in the world with the disciples, he remained but one. He remained but a seed. But if he died, if he went to the cross, if he suffered, if he went to the cross, guess what? There's going to be multiplication. People will believe the message and they will be moved. There's so much power in the seed. And it's up to you what you do with it. See, a seed can be dormant, preserved, just hold on to it. Or you can plant it, and it can die, and it can produce. And you can ask yourself this question right now. Are you the seed that is just a single seed, or the seed that has been planted, the seed that has been used, the seed that allowed to die, to germinate, and out of that, life comes out of it? Are you preserved, or are you producing? And I know this can be uncomfortable, because it can very quickly become all about performance. But I want to go there a little bit today. I want us to go there. Let's challenge ourselves a little bit. Because Jesus tells a story, and we call it the parable of the talents. And it's a story that we love, it's a story that we know, but it's also a story that is loaded with tension. And let's read that together. In Matthew 25, And let me just set it up a little bit. In Matthew 25, Jesus is telling his disciples stories. And he's engaged in conversations with them about what is going to happen to him. That eventually he is going to be gone. And one day, though, he will come back. And he talks to them about being ready for his return. But what do you do, though, while you're waiting for Jesus' coming? Are you going to remain unproductive, unfruitful, a single seed? Or you are going to multiply? And in the story, Jesus gave 3 servants. One, he gave 5 talents, the other 2. And then the third, he just gave 1. And the passage says that he went for a long time, and then eventually he came back. And when he came back, he called them to settle accounts. Show me what you've done while I was gone. Verse 24. Then the man who had received 1 talent came. Of course, the 5 and the 2, they had gone out and done business and they multiplied. The first one said, hey, you gave me 5. Look, I've inherited 5 more. I've gained 5 more. Then the second person came and he said the same thing. You gave me 2 and here's the other 2. And the scripture says that, the master was filled with joy and he says, good and faithful servant. Is that not what we want God to say about us? Good and faithful servant. I entrusted you with little things. And now there's more coming. I will put you in charge of many things. Before I even read this passage, have you ever felt like you need more responsibilities? Have you ever felt that you're undervalued at work? That your work, you're not seen, you just do menial work, just the minimum? Or even in the church, hey, I would love to be on stage. That song by Brianna was just incredible. And you're like, yeah, I want to be there and I want to sing that song and I think I got it and I want to be seen. And let me ask you a simple question. Are you faithful in the little things? Are you faithful in the little things? Or are you waiting for a stage so you can be faithful? Are you faithful in the little things? So this is where we find ourselves, verse 24. Then the man who had received 1 talent came, Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, or gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here, this is what belongs to you. Take it. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed, right? Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with a bank so that when I return, I will have received back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. And this is the passage I want us to really spend time thinking about it. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. Do you think God has an expectation of you? Is there an expectation? How do you feel about this idea of settling accounts, that we are accountable? I'll be honest with you, it makes me uncomfortable. Because it calls me to examine myself and say to myself, what's going on here? What is happening in my life? Is there evidence of grace in my life? I don't like accountability. But when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I love accountability. Oh my goodness. I love it. And Jesus speaks to you and I exactly where we don't want him to go. Where we are doing our best to hide, that's the very place he will take you and I if we will allow him. And as I'm beginning to get into the story right now, you may be tempted to shut down. You may be tempted to say, I've heard this story before. Maybe give it another chance. Maybe allow Jesus to go there with you, because he didn't tell these people to just wait. He says, I am entrusting you with something valuable. And I want you to do something with it. And this passage here, is it talents? Is it abilities? How do you give people abilities based on their abilities? How do you give people, is it talent? Is it money? Is it a gift? And we've been all over the place trying to find out exactly what this means. And some were saying, but hey, if you just got one, that means you can't do much with it. But if you got 5, then maybe you can do more with it. Is it quantity? Is it quality? Is it because God doesn't love you? That's why he gave you maybe less talent and some people more talent? That's not true. But what is undeniable is that you and I have been given something special, something valuable. The problem is that we feel challenged by what the scriptures are talking about. Here's what I mean. Why is Jesus making this passage all about performance? They worked hard. They doubled what was given to them. And Jesus, woo, let's celebrate. Superstar. The other person, he just buried it and says, I didn't actually lose it. Here's what you gave me. Take it back. See, performance is a sensitive topic in Christian circles. Why is that? We're okay performing at work because if you don't perform, you'll be let go. You are paid for specific tasks to accomplish at your work. And I'm not saying our salvation is work-driven. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm wondering if we are cutting our salvation short, if we are not maximizing the blessings that comes with salvation because we are simply doing just the minimum. I'm wondering if you value what Jesus did on the cross for you. Because I was told what you value appreciates. What's happening here? Well, we're saved by grace. I don't have to do anything. Paul wrote so much about grace, it's not even funny. He just kept writing. But you know what he wrote in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 10? He says, but by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace to me was not without effect. The grace was not without impact. The grace made a difference. And I worked harder than all of them, like every single person. I get it, it's not a competition. But we say, you know what, because of grace, there is something called absolution. I've been released from my responsibility because I'm saved by grace. That is false doctrine. And that is what happened to the man who had just won. Because he was challenged, he took the oldest trick in the book, deny, deflect, defend. Hey, it's not about me, it's all about you. You are a hard man. You don't love me. You're a wicked. You cheat. Everything he said was contrary to what the other two said. The other two said, are you kidding me? I am so grateful. I am honored. I'm privileged to have this responsibility to go out and represent you. Go out and carry on a business. And then the other guy goes, no. I just want to do the minimum. I'm not sure if you noticed this. Those who went out and multiplied the talents, the abilities that they were given, do you know they were equally active, just like the gentleman who received just one? It took time for him to think about it, to process, what am I going to do? What do I know about the master, first and foremost? Secondly, what should I do to protect this money? He must have gone away from the crowd, find a place, dug the ground, buried the money, and then kept an eye on it. Okay, nobody can find it. I want it protected because one day I'm just going to give account and I'll give it back. There was so much activity involved in just preserving than those who went and put their talent to use. And many of us, unfortunately, we are just looking for the line. Where is the line? Where is the minimum that I can do so that I feel good about myself? So that you cannot challenge me. Hey, I've done my job. I'm reminded of your credit card, my credit card, and the minimum payment. Years I used to work for one of those banks. And when you get your bill, it just says the minimum payment you have to pay, right? And it doesn't matter the amount you have on it. It could be $10,000. The minimum payment is $150. And you're like, this is good. I can keep paying this. So the government of Canada went to bat for you. The government said, this is not right. Because all you're doing is indebting people. People are going to more and more debt. And so we have to come to the rescue of Canadians. I wish they can do that with our cell phone bills, but so they went to the bank and said, no. Effective immediately, here's what you're going to do. On the top right corner, first page, you are going to put, if you keep making these minimum payments, it will take you 13 years to pay that $10,000. And you double the interest. The $10,000 will become $20,000. The banks, whoa, let's not do that. Let's not do that. We don't want to show them the cost of the minimum payment. We're just trying to help people here. Then the government said no. So the bank won. Sorry, the government won. Then the bank said, whoa, you cannot win. Our systems are complex. Our systems, we don't have enough, smart folks, programmers to change the formatting of the sheets, right? The statement. We don't make billions per quarter. And so we need about 2 years to change our systems. Come again? 2 years just to be able to change your credit card statement to have your minimum payment right on the front page that tells you how much interest you're going to pay and how long it will take you to pay if you make those minimum payments. Why am I telling you all of this? I think when it comes to Jesus, sometimes we want to pay the minimum, just to feel good about ourselves or just to say to our conscience, oh, I'm a Christian. I just gave. I showed up. Minimum payment. It costs you more than you think. Holding on to that seed, it costs you more than you think. And I'm not saying that if you don't share, if you don't use your talents, you're going to go to hell. That's not what I'm talking about. We're more mature than that. But if there is no evidence of transformation in your life, you know what happens? Eventually, you get discouraged. Eventually, you walk away. Eventually, you become, say, this Christianity thing is not working for me. And God is saying, I've given you all the resources. I've given you abilities. I've given you knowledge. I've given you experience. I've given you a community. And I want you to go out there and represent me. And whoa, my faith is private. It's between me and God. No. The master told his servants, go public. Because if you're a servant, chances are you had nothing. Chances are you are quote unquote a nobody. All of a sudden you show up and you've opened a business that's thriving. Something must have happened to you. Someone has done something for you. And is that not grace? Is that not God's grace? Being able to come into our lives and transform our lives. For the rest of our time here, I want to talk about the greatest gift that we've all received. Because this talent thing, it can become, well, I can sing, I can dance, I can rap, if Stu was preaching here, he would just break into rap, and he's so cool, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that ain't me, right? So, yeah, we compete against ourselves with people's talents. But what if this parable is not so much about the gifts that God has given you, but it's all about being faithful? And so I want to talk about the greatest gift of all, and that is the gift of salvation. The gift of salvation. We have something special. And you may not like it. I don't like it at times, if I can be honest with you. But Jesus expects a return on his investment. I mean, you do the same, won't you, parents? You invest so much in your kids, and there's no sense of gratitude. There's no sense of joy, but all you see is entitlement. The greatest gift that you and I have is the gift of salvation. And Jesus is saying, I want you to represent me. I want you to go out there and multiply. Have you buried your salvation? Is it buried? Is it evident? Do people see it? Is it hidden? Is it dead or dying? I believe this summer is your chance to stick close to Jesus, to spend time with Jesus, not just hear it, but to do something with it. I want to talk about a passage that I believe fits what we're talking about here, and that's Matthew chapter 10. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus, let me set it up. Jesus, in Matthew chapter 9, he is going about and he's preaching the gospel. And wherever he goes, the Bible says there's crowd. They just come out, and every time Jesus sees people who are harassed, people who are helpless, and he's moved by compassion. And so he turned around and he saw his disciples, he saw the crowd, he saw his disciples and said, you know what? What I see is a harvest. Harassed, helpless, harvest. How do we do that? Well, let's pray. Let's pray that God will send people into the work, into the harvest. And then chapter 10, it says, you are the harvesters. You are the answers to the prayers. You are the solution. The reason I'm passionate about this, about just the gift of salvation, is this: because if you've been saved, if you've experienced Jesus' blood and his forgiveness on the cross, you have gone from being harassed and helpless into a community. The Bible calls a citizenship, a church. And this is supposed to bring us so much comfort, so much peace. And there are so many people out there who remain helpless. And in the terms of the scriptures, who are in darkness. I'm not saying we are better than them. That's not my point. But I'm saying you have something special. And they need it. When Jesus saw those who were harassed, he said, you know what? You are the solution. He said, my people are world changers. Where they go, there's an impact. So with that in mind, let's read this. Verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, preach this message. The kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Freely you have received, freely give. Do not take along gold or silver or copper in your belts. Take no bag for the journey, no extra tunic or sandals or staff, for the worker is worth his keep. Wherever town or village you enter, search for someone worthy. Stay in their house until you leave. You know, Jesus is saying, guys, you've seen me. You've experienced me. You know me. That's what it means to know somebody, to experience. And sometimes we say to ourselves, well, I am not equipped. I don't know what to do. Jesus is saying, no, you have seen me. If you are saved today, you are equipped. But sometimes, as I was sharing the message with a friend, he reminded me sometimes this idea of sharing your faith, this idea of sharing the gift of salvation, we can present it as some PhD, some master's degree that you need to acquire, then you can share. No. As you go, what you've seen. We were not meant to reinvent the message. We were meant to go and share the same message that the prophets shared, the same message that John the Baptist shared, the same message that Jesus brought. And at this stage here, he is sending people out, and he said, it's the same message. The kingdom of God is at hand. And I believe there are many, many people in our communities who may not know this or who may be aware of it, but it's not within their reach. And you are that bridge. As you go, I like that. As you go on in your summer vacation, as you go in your offices, as you go in your campuses, as you go home, as you walk with your kids, as you take the GO train, as you go. For the most part, as part of our history, we made evangelism, it was so planned. It's just 2 on 2, 1 on. We do campaign. We did so many things just to get people out. And I am so grateful for the efforts, for the leadership of those who've gone before us. I was invited to church by a stranger. I'm a huge believer in talking to strangers about God. I won't be here today. But I believe we made that as the only way to share the gospel. So you have to leave and you have to go. And of course, when we were in campus, it was easier. And many of us graduated, we got jobs and we got kids and we got health issues. And so what's happening is we are not going. Or maybe we are waiting for it to be planned for us. As you go, that is the right interpretation of what it means to share your faith. As you go. So you're not sent to go reinvent the message. That's 1. 2, you are going with a message, but you are going in the power of Jesus Christ. Amen. Not even in the power of your church or some group or some leaders. You are going in the power of Jesus Christ to represent him. What is sad, though, we've given this power away. We've given it away. We've given the power, and they're buried in programs. They're buried in traditions. At the time, this was the best and the most efficient way to preach. And Jesus said, I am sending you 2 by 2. As you go and God will provide a place for you to stay. That was the method. And it was not the same as the message. And we have to become fluid so that we can change our methods to meet the needs of the community without changing the message. And I'm so proud of Milestone and what we've done here when COVID hit. We got to meet online. I don't see, a digital minister here, but we have one. You know why? That's the need. Let's not handicap our leaders with traditions. Let's not handicap our leaders with precedents and what we've done in the past. Let's allow the Spirit to move our leaders to lead the church forward. When an idea comes up through prayers, through the Spirit, what we sometimes hear is, but who's doing that? Who's done it? What did we do before? No, We need to let the past go. We are not changing the message. We are changing the method. That's what I see here. As you go, let me talk briefly about feeling insecure in sharing the gift of salvation. If I can be honest with you, we are always going to feel insecure. Always. When Jesus sent them here in Mark chapter 10, Jesus was sending them. They have seen Jesus in action. And then Jesus is saying, now you go do exactly what I've been doing. Of course you're going to be feeling insecure. You're going to feel inequipped. The same is true. The only difference between them and us is that, the insecurity and the fear is holding us back. These people still went. They went forward because they believed they were empowered. They were given the authority to go and represent Jesus. Matthew 28 is the same passage. We don't have to turn there, but Matthew 28 says the same thing. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go. It's the same thing. But what is important is that we go in the spirit of generosity. Freely you have received, freely give. That we go in the spirit of appreciation. That we go in the spirit of, wow, privilege. Not a burden, privilege. That I get to represent Jesus. I get to bring hope to a dying world. I get to sit and share the scriptures with people. I get to change the destiny of many, many, many people around me. What a privilege. See, prior to becoming a disciple, I didn't know this. The church that I was a part of, you go to church and it's all about the guy up front. He knew everything and he said everything and you just went home. And then somebody invited me on the street and I said the scriptures. And for the first time, gosh, the scales fell off. And I could see that as uneducated, as, whatever, as little, as insecure. I can still have an impact. And all I have to do is to represent Jesus. All I have to do is to share the scriptures. See, my concern is the going is gradually morphing into waiting. That invitation to go is gradually becoming this process of waiting. I'm waiting to understand more. I'm waiting to see the vision, to catch the vision. I'm waiting for inspiration. I'm waiting for my PhD so I can go out and share. I'm waiting for time to overcome my fears. Waiting. And the more you wait, guess what? The more you devalue your faith, your salvation. It becomes meaningless to you. And the challenge with waiting is that you lose your passion, you lose your purpose, and your problems actually multiply. Why? Because you're unsettled. Essentially, you die slowly. In the early 1990s, there's a nursing home in New York, Chase Memorial. They had a problem. The elderly were declining rapidly. And it didn't matter what they did. They prescribed more medicine. The situation didn't change. And so they went out and they hired a medical director, Dr. Bill Thomas. And he came in and he said, I believe there's a relationship between somebody's purpose in life and vitality, between the level of responsibility and the energy and your health. There's a relationship. So he went on to change it. But how did he do that? said, well, we need to change what we've been doing. Instead of the seniors' home becoming a repository where seniors just come and they just wait, what if we change it so it become a place of life, a place of autonomy, responsibility? Because they're still alive. We just can't wait. So he did the unthinkable. He introduced plants. Today you may think, what? Wow, such a concept. It didn't exist back then. He introduced rabbits and cats and dogs and over 100 birds. All of a sudden, people who had been silent for years, they started talking. All of a sudden, those who were not leaving their room, they would dress up. They would get up early in the morning. They would dress up and they would go walk the dog. They would go and take care of the birds. All of a sudden, some gave away their wheelchairs for a walker. There was life that was brought into their lives. There was energy. Why? Because there was a responsibility. Because they felt it was everyone's responsibility to care for the animals. That went on to not only give them life, live longer. They did a comparative studies, and they found out that the death rate actually fell 15%. And the prescription, they were not prescribing as much. It fell 38%. And today, some of you may know it as eating alternative. That has gone on all over the world because of this concept of responsibility. That you have a purpose in life. That you are not here just waiting to die to make it to heaven. That God has given you something special. That God has entrusted you with faith. He's entrusted you with your salvation, and it's meant to have an impact. So what is it for you? The master replied to those who've been faithful, Matthew 25:23, well done, good and successful servant? No. No. Because the reason we don't go is that we are afraid of failure. So it's not about being successful. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. What can you take away from this week? For some of you, get comfortable with giving an account on the knowledge God has given you, the resources He's given you, your time and your money. Get comfortable with giving account on the resources God has given you. For some of you, this week may be the week that you show somebody you're a Christian. You don't tell them, you show them that you're a Christian by your life, by what has been entrusted to you. For some of you, this is the summer you overcome your fear. That you will go even afraid. Because God promises to be with you, and in the end, His hope, my hope, is that He'll be able to say to us, good and faithful servant. Thank you.